Good, wonderful. We have a good meeting. Why is it so hard to move on from a past concept of the self, whether in the context of a partner or the self itself? Let me make sure I understand your question, because it could be interpreted many different ways. Why is it so hard to move on from a past concept of the self? Well, you're talking about you considered yourself in a certain way, and you conditioned yourself through life as seeing yourself, the image of you in your mind in a certain way, and now you think, why is it so hard to move away from it? If that's the question, well, it's hard because you've conditioned yourself for so long to see yourself as what you see, as the image that you see of yourself, that you created of yourself in your mind. And now that conditioning has become part of you, and you think that what you've conditioned yourself is you. Well, in fact, that's a conditioning you brought about to shape you as it is right now, due to your needs to be like that for the, I don't know, purposes that you needed to be like that to negotiate life in the community that you live in, or in the opportunities that existed and you had to turn into that. But if you do that for long and you make that to be you, then that is your order, your new way of being. And that's going to maybe take a while for you to change that. But it can be changed as long as you recognize that now you want to have a different image. Because every day, the way you are, the way you think, is defining you the way you are. And the way you think is based on what you want to do. Let's say you walk into a store, and the image you have of yourself is the image of a shopper. You're shopping this, you're looking at this, and you're behaving differently. And that's the image. But if you're in a store and you're a salesperson and somebody walks in, you have an image of a salesman, a salesperson. If you're a teacher, you have an image of a teacher. If you're talking to your mother, you have an image of a daughter. If you're talking to your son, or if you have children, you have an image of a mother. If you're talking to your boyfriend or a husband, you have an image of a wife or a girlfriend. If you're talking with your girlfriend, you have an image of a friend. If you're consoling them, you have an image of a consultant or maybe a counselor. If you're getting help from someone, maybe you have an image of someone who is seeking that knowledge. So all these images through the day, depending on what you want to do, you grab them, you turn yourself into that, and that's the image you have. And as soon as you finish with it, you kind of separate yourself from it. You have a different image, you know? So these images are what you may think of yourself to be at a different time. Just as you're able to do this, well, you're able also to change your image of the self that you're talking about. You figure out what that self, how that self has been brought about, depending and based on what you went through and what you needed to have the image to do what you wanted to do, and you created that self, and suddenly that self, that image stayed, and you see yourself as that image, and you can change that image depending on what the situation and circumstance are. Now, whether in the context of a partner or the self itself. In the context of the partner, the self that you think of yourself, again, is the image of you think of yourself. Because what is self? In a very nutshell, I don't want to get into it because it's a long discussion, this one. The self is you, your center, your whole of you, your consciousness. Every experience that you have in here, the field of the known, where your thoughts are born from it, based on what's accumulated here through the experiences and the knowledge and, you know, the things that you've gone through and you've been exposed to, your religions and traditions and customs and whatever you read and whatever you saw and all these things. That's the field of the known. And based on that field of the known, your thoughts are born from that field of the known. And so all of that The whole thing, your dogmas and everything else, that's you. That's your center. That's yourself. Yeah? Now, if you change the image that you have of yourself, then you use a different part of all that information pertaining to that image. And yourself becomes a fragment of what really you are, because you just separated yourself in order to use that image to get whatever it is that you're negotiating with in that circumstance. So in relationship, it's also depending on what you see, what you seek in that relationship. And maybe you altered yourself because of what you were hoping to build or get from that relationship. So these are all what you should consider, and you can move away from it by recognizing how you have created them, and now you can dismantle them or change them or modify them. But these are all fragments of you, because there's so many images that we use during the day, and we abandon them and use a different image, different circumstance, different time of the different thing that we are doing. So same thing, you can recognize that and be the whole of you, or to be a fragment of whole of you in a different circumstances. And of course, it all also depends on how the other person in a relationship is interacting with you, which causes you to want to have a certain image or just simply have no image. If you want to be free and not be bothered, have no image. If you have no image, then you're free. Nothing can get in under your skin. Because you try to protect that image, and that image becomes more important than you. And that's the beginning of suffering. Because you now are after protecting a fictitious image that it doesn't even exist, but you now value it more than who you are and what you are. Because you have created an image of yourself in your mind, and you want to protect that, and for that you suffer to protect that, because so many other people interact with it differently, and it may or may not be the way you want your image to be affected or influenced or interacted with.